Today's tutorial will take you through two different methods of how to create a half elasticated waistband. The first method is one that is more commonly used in factories and is called the envelope finish.
So here we have my bolt culottes. This pattern is available on makewithmandy.com, and here you can see it's got a nice flat front on the waist here, and on the back it is elasticated. So this is called a half elasticated waistband. So I love these culottes because they're super comfortable and they look quite smart from the front, but yet they're elasticated on the back. So this will be the finished effect that we are looking for. It's all very neatly finished inside with no raw edges visible, and the elastic is secured at the side seams. So here you have your waistband pieces. So I have two back waistband pieces and two front waistband pieces, and then I also have my elastic cut to the correct size. Now, to get your elastic to the size that you need, I have measured where I want the culottes to sit on me. So for me, I like to wear them on my hips, so I have measured around my hips and I have halved that measure, and that's the size of my elastic. I have also added some fusing to my front waistband pieces. So my fabric's quite thin and it's got quite an open weave, so I wanted to give it a bit more structure only on the front. You don't need it on the back because the back will be gathered, so you want to keep that nice and loose. As you can see here, I have actually cut my fusing smaller than the actual piece of the fabric. Now, the reason why you should do this is you don't want it to be bulky when you sew the seams. You don't want it on the seam allowance because that will just create extra bulk where you don't need it. It's entirely up to you if you want to do it this way, or you can simply just cut your fusing exactly the same size as your pattern piece. However, this is the official way to do it. So your first step is take your elastic and position it onto the back waistband. Find the middle of your piece of fabric. So you can just simply do this by folding it in half. I'm just going to put a little crease there. You should have notches on your pattern piece. Find the middle of your elastic, pop it down. You want this to be central in this waistband because this is a two-piece back waistband. Some waistbands are grown on, but this is a two-piece waistband. You can attach this in the middle here and then sew to attach the short edges of the fabric to the short edges of the elastic. Once you have attached your elastic to the back waistband piece at the sides and the centre back, your next step will be to sew along what will be your top edge of your waistband. So put your right sides together and sew at your seam allowance. In this case it's 1.5 centimetres from that edge. You will need to do the same for the front waistband pieces. So again, put your right sides together and then sew at your seam allowance across this top edge. So my elastic is attached to the side seams and the centre back of one of my waistband pieces. I have now stitched along the top here to attach the two back waistband pieces, and I've also done the same on the front waistband pieces. So now you can see when you fold these out, there's a nice straight seam there. The next step is to turn this into a circular waistband. So you need to attach the short sides together. So with the right sides together again, you will sew down the short sides here. You will now have your circular waistband piece. Take the body of your garment. I'm just using a mock-up here, but you will have the pockets and the pleats here if you're making the bolt culotte pattern. Have your body of your garment the wrong side out and do the same with your waistband piece. Now place the body of your garment inside your circular waistband. Use your notches and match up the two edges. Now, a little tip here, instead of pressing your side seams open, push the side seams onto the front. That will help reduce the bulk that you get from the elastic, because it can be a little bit bulky at this point. Now, use as many pins as you need to secure the pieces together. Now, once you have this all pinned in place, sew at your seam allowance along this line, being careful not to catch in either the elastic or the underside of the waistband pieces. So here is your waistband now attached to the body of your garment. This will be the side of the waistband that sits against your body, so this is the inside of your garment. What you need to do next is iron your seam allowance on this edge to just a little bit less than what you would normally use on your seam allowance. So in my case, my seam allowance is 1.5 centimetres and I'm going to iron this at 1.3 centimetres. Now, the reason why we do this is because you're going to want to have this piece a tiny bit longer than this piece so that it actually covers up this seam line that you have made here. Now go ahead and with pins, secure this in place. Now, I would suggest to use quite a lot of pins, particularly when you get to the back, because it can be very fiddly trying to stretch the elastic and sew at the same time. And a couple of things to be wary of when you're pinning. Make sure you don't pin through the elastic, because that needs to be free running. Otherwise, it will prevent you from being able to stretch it while you sew. Once you have finished with your pinning, go along and double check that your new pinned waistband piece covers the original seam line. Your next step is to neatly top stitch this down. Now, the way to do this is to top stitch with the right side facing up. So if you turn your garment the wrong side out, and then position this so your machine foot is on here and you are sewing around in a circle. This method will help you avoid accidentally catching in another part of the garment when you're sewing. Now, take your time, because it is very tricky sewing and stretching this waistband, but you can do it. So there you have it. That's method number 1, the envelope finish method. Method number 2, I will now show you how to create the same thing in a much simpler way using the casing method. Now, the big difference between the envelope finish and the casing method is that you do not attach your elastic until the end of the waistband process. Follow your earlier steps, except do not attach the elastic. So get your waistband to this stage and then bring it over. And as you did on the envelope method, pin this all down in place. But the difference this time is that when you get to the side seam, I want you to leave around 1 inch or 3 centimetres gap on each side seam. So do not sew this area. So give yourself a little marker here, that you know that you need to stop sewing here. Now go ahead and top stitch along this line. Now that you have neatly top stitched down your waistband and left open 3 centimetre gaps, attach a safety pin to your elastic. Take this elastic and with the safety pin end first, start threading it through one of the holes on your waistband piece. Once you get to the end of the elastic, before you start pulling the safety pin through, secure this end with a pin so that you don't lose this in the waistband. Now take your time. This is a little bit fiddly, but just push the safety pin through until you get to the other end. Once you have this pulled through, just double check that the elastic is not twisted. So you just do this by feeling along and just making sure that it's nice and flat. Now remove the safety pin. And then with a pin, secure this end in place. And now finally, pick up where you left off and top stitch along this edge to close those openings. And then remove this pin, and you will now do what we call stitch in the ditch or a sink stitch. Position your machine needle right in the seam here, and then run your machine forwards and backwards a couple of times, taking care to keep the needle in this seam. That will secure your elastic, and you want to do that a couple of times because that will be a pressure point. Do the same on the other edge, and then you will have constructed your waistband using the casing method. And here is your finished result. So you can see it's beautifully top stitched along here and really nicely finished along the back, and all neat and finished on the inside with no raw edges visible. And there you have it, your half elasticated waistband.